I never imagined that a patch of asphalt would be the battleground for the most ridiculous war of my life. But there I was, standing in my driveway at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, staring at a gleaming white Cadillac Escalade parked diagonally across my property line, completely blocking my exit. The cherry on top, a bumper sticker reading "Proud HOA board member" plastered on the back. This wasn't just an inconvenience, this was a declaration of war. My name is Ethan Jenkins, and until 6 months ago, I was living a peaceful life in my newly purchased dream home in Suncrest Estates, a picturesque neighborhood in Scottsdale, Arizona. The property had everything I wanted: 3 bedrooms, a spacious backyard, and most importantly, a private driveway that connected to what I later discovered was actually my own private access road. I'd spent years saving for this place, working overtime as a software engineer to afford a home where I could finally have some peace and quiet. Peace and quiet. What a joke that turned out to be. I grabbed my phone and snapped several photos of the Escalade from different angles, making sure to capture how it was clearly on my property and blocking my driveway. Then I called the HOA management company. Suncrest Estates Homeowners Association. How may I help you? A cheerful voice answered. Hi, there's an SUV blocking my driveway at 4872 Saguaro Lane. I need it moved immediately so I can get to work. Oh, I see. Well, I can make a note of it, but our board members are currently in their monthly meeting. Someone will come by to assess the situation afterward. Assess what situation? There's a car blocking my driveway. I need to get to work. Sir, please understand that we have protocols in place. Board Treasurer Patricia Wilson is handling parking violations this month, and she'll need to verify. I hung up. Patricia Wilson. The name alone made my blood pressure spike. In the 6 months I'd lived here, I'd already had 4 run-ins with her, all over trivial violations that existed only in her imagination. My garbage can being visible from the street, it wasn't. My lawn being a 1/4 inch too tall, I measured. My mailbox being the wrong shade of beige, it was the HOA-approved color, and my garden hose being unsightly, it was coiled in a hose container. I dialed my boss to explain the situation. Fortunately, my company had flexible work-from-home policies, but this was still an inconvenience. As I ended the call, I noticed a group of women walking up the street, all carrying identical blue folders. The HOA meeting must have just ended. Leading the pack was none other than Patricia herself, mid-50s, bottle blonde hair in a perfect bob, designer sunglasses perched on her nose, and wearing a pastel pink pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. And no surprise, she was heading straight for the Escalade. "Excuse me," I called out, walking down my driveway. "Is this your vehicle?" Patricia turned, her eyes narrowing when she recognized me. "Yes, Mr. Jenkins. I parked here temporarily for our meeting. You're blocking my driveway. I couldn't get to work." She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "It's only been a couple of hours. Besides, the community center parking was full." "That doesn't give you the right to block my driveway. I need you to move your car now." Patricia's face tightened. The other women in her entourage, the rest of the HOA board, I presumed exchanged glances. "Well, actually," Patricia said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I noticed your grass is looking a bit brown in spots." Section 12. Paragraph 3 of our covenants clearly states that all lawns must be maintained in a lush, green condition year-round. I was planning to discuss this with you anyway. Was she seriously trying to deflect? My irrigation system is working fine, and we're in Arizona in the middle of summer. My lawn meets code. Now please move your car. I'll move it when I'm ready. she replied, her smile vanishing. "And you might want to check your attitude, Mr. Jenkins. The HOA board has broad powers to enforce compliance. We can make things very difficult for homeowners who don't cooperate." I felt my face growing hot. "Are you threatening me because I asked you to move your illegally parked vehicle from my property? I'm simply pointing out that cooperation makes for a better community experience." She turned to her cronies. "Ladies, shall we continue our discussion at my house? I've prepared mimosas." As they walked away, Patricia called over her shoulder, "I'll move my car in about an hour. I need to prepare for our brunch first." I stood there, dumbfounded. This woman had just openly admitted she was going to continue blocking my driveway out of pure spite. That's when I remembered something crucial about my property. When I'd purchased the home, my real estate agent had pointed out a unique feature. Unlike most homes in the neighborhood, mine had a private access road that connected to my driveway. It wasn't part of the HOA's common areas, it was deeded to me personally. I went inside and dug through my filing cabinet until I found the property documents. Sure enough, there it was in black and white. Lot 42 includes exclusive rights to the access road marked in Addendum A, maintained at owner's expense and discretion. I smiled as a plan formed. If Patricia wanted to play hardball, she'd picked the wrong opponent. I made a quick call to a towing company I'd used before when my car broke down. "Desert Eagle Towing, how can we help you?" "Hi, I need a car towed from my private property immediately." "Sure thing. Is it an abandoned vehicle?" "No, it's illegally parked on my private access road, blocking my driveway. I have documentation proving it's my private property." 20 minutes later, a tow truck pulled up. The driver, a burly guy named Mike, checked my deed documents and took copies of the photos I'd taken. "Yep, this is pretty straightforward," he said. "If it's your private road and they don't have permission to park here, we can tow it. Just need you to sign this authorization form." I signed with perhaps more enthusiasm than was professional. As Mike was hooking up the Escalade, Patricia came running out of her house 3 doors down, mimosa still in hand. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrieked, her face contorting in rage. "Having an illegally parked vehicle removed from my private property," I replied calmly. "You can't do this. I'm on the HOA board." "This isn't HOA property, Miss Wilson. This is my private access road as clearly indicated in my property deed. You're trespassing." Mike, to his credit, continued working as if this was just another day on the job, which, for him, it probably was. "Where are you taking my car?" Patricia demanded, now addressing Mike directly. "Desert Eagle impound lot on Camelback Road, madam. You can pick it up once you pay the towing and impound fees. They'll explain all that at the office." Patricia's face went from red to purple. "This is outrageous. I'll have your job for this. And you," she pointed a trembling finger at me, "you haven't heard the last of this. The board will be discussing your violation at our next meeting." "What violation would that be?" "Enforcing my property rights." She didn't answer, instead stomping back to her house, sloshing mimosa onto her pink pantsuit in the process. As Mike drove away with the Escalade in tow, I felt a momentary sense of triumph. But I knew better than to think this was over. I just made an enemy of one of the most powerful people in the neighborhood. That night, I received an email from the HOA management company. The subject line read, "Urgent. Notice of Emergency HOA Board Meeting Violation Review." The body of the email stated that a special meeting had been called for the following evening to discuss serious violations by the homeowner at 4872 Sagaro Lane. They were moving fast. Typically, these meetings were scheduled weeks in advance. Patricia was clearly pulling strings to expedite her revenge. I spent the evening researching HOA laws in Arizona and reviewing our community's CC and RTCS, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The more I read, the more confident I became that I hadn't violated any rules. If anything, Patricia had violated several by using her position to harass me. The next morning, I woke to find a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. According to this notice, I was in violation of no less than 7 HOA rules, including improper lawn maintenance, unauthorized modifications to community property, creating a hostile environment for board members, and most ridiculously, improper towing procedures. I photographed the notice and added it to my growing file of evidence. Then I called my cousin Vincent, who happened to be a real estate attorney in Phoenix. "They can't do much without following proper procedures," Vincent assured me after I explained the situation. "They need to give you written notice of specific violations, provide a reasonable time to remedy them, and offer a hearing before imposing any fines or penalties. From what you're telling me, they're skipping steps, which makes their actions legally questionable." "What about her claim that my private road is community property? If your deed clearly states it's yours, then it's yours. HOAs often try to overreach their authority, but they can't override legal property rights established in your deed." Armed with this knowledge, I decided to attend the emergency meeting that evening. I brought copies of my deed, photographs of Patricia's SUV blocking my driveway, and Arizona statutes regarding HOA procedures and private property rights. The meeting was held in our community center, a small building near the neighborhood pool. When I arrived, about a dozen homeowners were already seated in folding chairs. Patricia sat at a table in front with 4 other board members, all women in their 50s and 60s who looked at me with thinly veiled hostility as I entered. "Ah, Mr. Jenkins has decided to join us," Patricia announced, her voice dripping with fake cordiality. "How thoughtful of you to grace us with your presence after causing so much disruption to our community." "I'm always happy to participate in community discussions," I replied pleasantly, taking a seat in the front row. "Especially when they concern me directly." Patricia cleared her throat. "The board has called this emergency meeting to address serious concerns regarding Mr. Jenkins' behavior and multiple violations of our community standards." For the next 15 minutes, Patricia listed my alleged infractions, dramatically expanding the 7 violations from the notice to an impressive 12. According to her, I was single-handedly destroying property values and the harmonious aesthetic of Suncrest Estates. When she finally paused for breath, I raised my hand. "May I respond to these allegations?" "This isn't a dialogue, Mr. Jenkins. This is an informational meeting to make you aware of your violations and the penalties being assessed." "Actually," I said, standing up and pulling out a printed copy of our HOA bylaws. "According to Section 7, Paragraph 4 of our association's bylaws, any homeowner accused of violations has the right to address the board and present evidence in their defense before any penalties are assessed." A murmur ran through the room. Clearly, few residents had actually read the bylaws. Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Fine, you have 2 minutes." I walked to the front of the room. "First, regarding the claim that I improperly towed a vehicle, the access road connecting to my driveway is my private property according to my deed." I held up the relevant document. "Miss Wilson parked her vehicle on my property without permission, blocking my driveway and preventing me from going to work. After she refused to move it when asked, I was legally entitled to have it towed." I proceeded to systematically debunk each of Patricia's claims, providing photographic evidence and citing specific sections of the CC and Articles that proved I was in compliance. As I spoke, I could see some of the other homeowners nodding in agreement. Furthermore, I continued, I believe Miss Wilson is abusing her position on the board to pursue a personal vendetta against me. This emergency meeting was called without proper notice, and the violations were fabricated after I legally exercised my property rights. Patricia slammed her hand on the table. That's enough. Your 2 minutes are up. Actually, said an older gentleman from the back of the room, I'd like to hear more. I've had similar issues with arbitrary enforcement. Several other homeowners voiced their agreement. It seemed I wasn't the only one who had experienced Patricia's tyranny. One of the other board members, a woman named Valerie Davis who had always seemed more reasonable, spoke up. Perhaps we should table this discussion until we can review Mr. Jenkins' evidence more thoroughly. We want to ensure we're applying the rules fairly and correctly. Patricia looked like she wanted to object, but with the room now clearly not on her side, she forced a tight smile. Fine. The board will review the evidence and reconvene at our regular meeting next month. As the meeting adjourned, several homeowners approached me to share their own stories about Patricia's reign of terror. One woman had been fined because her wind chimes were too noisy. Another had received violations for having a basketball hoop in his driveway, despite there being nothing in the CC and Articles prohibiting it. You should run for the board in the next election, suggested a retired man named Gary. We need someone who actually understands the rules and will apply them fairly. I hadn't considered getting involved in HOA politics, but the idea had merit. Change from within and all that. As I walked home, Valerie Davis caught up with me. I wanted to apologize for how that meeting was conducted, she said. Some board members take their positions a bit too zealously. I appreciate that. I'm not trying to cause problems, I just want to be treated fairly. I understand. Between you and me, Patricia has been running the board like her personal fiefdom for years. Many of us are getting tired of it. This was interesting information. How many board members feel that way? At least 2 others besides me. We've been looking for an opportunity to make changes, but Patricia has a way of intimidating people. Well, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know, Valerie smiled. I just might take you up on that. The next morning, I found another violation notice on my door, this time for conducting unauthorized meetings with board members. Apparently, my conversation with Valerie was now a violation. This was getting ridiculous. I was about to call Vincent again when I noticed Patricia's Escalade slowly driving past my house. She must have retrieved it from the impound lot. As I watched, she pulled over across the street and appeared to be taking photos of my house with her phone. This was harassment, plain and simple. I decided it was time to start documenting everything more formally. I set up a security camera system that covered my property, including the private access road and driveway. If Patricia or any other board member came onto my property or left notices, I'd have video evidence. Over the next week, Patricia drove by my house at least twice daily, sometimes stopping to take photos. The violation notices continued. I was now apparently in violation for having a security camera system, despite there being nothing in the CC and Articles prohibiting them. I received notices for having a delivery package on my porch for more than 4 hours, for watering my lawn on the wrong day, though I followed the schedule precisely, and for excessive vehicle traffic. I had friends over for a barbecue. Each notice I received went into my documentation file, along with evidence disproving the alleged violation. I also began recording all phone conversations with the management company and board members, which was legal in Arizona as a one-party consent state. The situation escalated when I received a certified letter informing me that the HOA was levying fines totaling $2,750 for my various violations. According to the letter, if I didn't pay within 30 days, they would place a lien on my property. That evening, as I was reviewing the letter with growing anger, I heard a car engine outside. My security camera alert pinged on my phone. When I checked the feed, I saw Patricia's Escalade again, but this time, she wasn't just driving by. She had pulled into my private access road and was once again blocking my driveway. I watched through the window as she got out, marched up to my front door, and taped what appeared to be another violation notice. Then, instead of moving her vehicle, she walked away down the street toward her house. This was beyond petty, it was deliberate harassment. I called Desert Eagle Towing again. Back so soon? Mike said when he arrived 20 minutes later. Same vehicle, same violation, I confirmed, showing him the security camera footage of Patricia parking and walking away. Some people never learn, he chuckled, getting to work. As he was hooking up the Escalade, I noticed Patricia rushing down the street, face contorted with rage. "Stop this immediately," she screamed. "I was just delivering an official HOA notice. I was going to move my car. You parked in my private driveway, taped a paper to my door, and walked away," I replied. "There's no indication you were coming back anytime soon. I was gone for 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes too long on my private property without permission, especially after what happened last time." Patricia turned to Mike. "This is harassment. He's targeting me because I'm enforcing the rules." Mike looked uncomfortable but continued his work. "Madam, I'm just doing my job. If you park on private property without permission, the owner has the right to have you towed. That's the law." "This isn't over," Patricia hissed at me as her car was once again towed away. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." The next day, I received a notice that the HOA board had called another emergency meeting, this time to discuss criminal harassment actions by the homeowner at 4872 Seguero Lane. The meeting was scheduled for that evening. I called Vincent immediately. "They're escalating. I need legal representation at this meeting." "I'll be there," he promised. "And I've reviewed everything you've sent me. They're way out of bounds here. We might have grounds for a harassment lawsuit against both the HOA and Patricia personally." When Vincent and I arrived at the community center that evening, the atmosphere was tense. More homeowners had shown up this time, word having spread about the ongoing conflict. Patricia sat at the front with the other board members, looking smug. "Before we begin," Vincent announced as we entered, "I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Vincent Davis, legal counsel for Mr. Jenkins. I'll be recording this meeting for legal purposes." Patricia's smug expression faltered. "This is an internal HOA matter. Outside counsel isn't necessary or appropriate." "On the contrary," Vincent replied smoothly, "given that you've accused my client of criminal actions and are threatening his property rights, legal representation is entirely appropriate. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to discuss this matter in court from the beginning." The room went quiet. Patricia consulted briefly with the other board members before continuing. "Fine. Let's proceed. This emergency meeting has been called to address Mr. Jenkins' continued harassment of board members and violations of community standards." For the next 20 minutes, Patricia outlined her version of events, painting me as a vindictive troublemaker who was undermining the community's standards and personally targeting her. When she finished, Vincent stood up. "My client has documented every interaction with Miss Wilson and this board. What the evidence shows is a pattern of harassment by Miss Wilson, not by Mr. Jenkins. She has repeatedly entered his property without permission, left frivolous violation notices not supported by the CC and Artiques, and used her position on the board to pursue a personal vendetta. He proceeded to present our evidence, including security camera footage of Patricia's repeated drive-bys, her entering my property, and her deliberately blocking my driveway twice. Furthermore, Vincent continued, the board has failed to follow its own procedures for issuing violations and imposing fines. The Arizona Planned Communities Act requires specific steps before an HOA can levy fines, including proper notice and an opportunity for a hearing. None of these procedures have been followed. The room erupted in murmurs. Many homeowners were nodding in agreement. In light of these facts, Vincent concluded, we demand that all alleged violations against my client be immediately rescinded, all fines canceled, and that Miss Wilson cease her campaign of harassment. If these demands are not met, we will file a lawsuit against the HOA and Miss Wilson personally for harassment, abuse of power, and violation of the Arizona Planned Communities Act. Patricia's face had gone from red to white during Vincent's presentation. She turned to the other board members, but they were avoiding her gaze. Valerie Davis cleared her throat. I move that we go into executive session to discuss this matter privately, she suggested. I second. Another board member quickly agreed. Patricia had no choice but to agree. The board will take a 15-minute recess for executive session. Please wait. As the board members filed out to a separate room, the other homeowners surrounded Vincent and me. It's about time someone stood up to her, one woman said. She fined me for having the wrong color mulch in my flower beds last year. She sent me a violation for my Christmas lights being too bright, another added. In December, the stories continued, each more ridiculous than the last. It was clear that Patricia had been abusing her power for years, and the residents were fed up. When the board returned, Patricia looked defeated. Valerie was the one who spoke. After reviewing the evidence presented by Mr. Jenkins and his counsel, the board has decided to rescind all violations and fines issued to Mr. Jenkins in the past 30 days. Furthermore, the board will be reviewing its procedures to ensure compliance with Arizona law. A cheer went up from the assembled homeowners. Patricia looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. Additionally, Valerie continued, I move that the board issue a formal apology to Mr. Jenkins for the inconvenience and distress caused by these actions. Second, came a quick response from another board member. Patricia's jaw clenched. All in favor, she ground out. Every board member except Patricia raised their hand. Motion carries, she said through gritted teeth. As the meeting adjourned, Patricia stormed out without speaking to anyone. Valerie approached Vincent and me with an extended hand. On behalf of the board, I apologize for this situation. Things got out of hand, and we failed in our duty to apply the rules fairly and consistently. Apology accepted, I said, shaking her hand. I hope we can move forward constructively. About that, Valerie said, lowering her voice. Several board positions will be opening up in the election next month. We could use someone with your attention to detail and knowledge of the rules. I glanced at Vincent, who gave a slight nod. I'll think about it. The next morning, I half expected to find another violation notice on my door out of spite, but there was nothing. As I left for work, I noticed several of my neighbors waving friendlier than usual greetings. Word had spread quickly. I didn't see Patricia's Escalade all day. In fact, I didn't see it for several days afterward. According to neighborhood gossip, which traveled faster than light in Suncrest Estates, she had taken a sudden vacation to visit her sister in California. When she returned 2 weeks later, she kept a low profile. No more drive-bys, no more violation notices. I occasionally saw her walking her small white poodle, but she would cross the street to avoid passing my house. The monthly HOA newsletter arrived the following week with a surprising announcement. Patricia Wilson had resigned from the board to focus on personal matters. The newsletter also announced upcoming board elections and encouraged residents to consider running for the 3 open positions. After much consideration and encouragement from neighbors, I decided to run. My platform was simple: transparent enforcement of the rules, clear communication with homeowners, and a focus on community building rather than punitive measures. The election wasn't even close. I received more votes than any candidate in Suncrest Estates history, according to Gary, who had lived there since the community was built. Valerie was elected president, with me as vice president and another reform-minded resident as treasurer. Our first official act as the new board was to review and simplify the community guidelines, removing arbitrary and unenforceable rules that had accumulated over the years. We also established a clear violation process that followed Arizona law to the letter. Patricia put her house on the market 3 months later. The day the sold sign went up in her yard, I found an envelope in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a brief, handwritten note. Mr. Jenkins, while I still believe in strict enforcement of community standards, I acknowledge that I may have been overzealous in your case. The community seems pleased with the changes you've implemented. I wish you well. Patricia Wilson. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was something. I tucked the note into my HOA file, which now contained board meeting minutes rather than violation notices, and smiled. Sometimes standing your ground was all it took to effect real change. As for my private access road and driveway, I had them freshly paved and clearly marked with private property no parking signs. No one has blocked them since. Not even delivery trucks. 6 months into my tenure on the board, we held our first community barbecue in the park. Attendance was double what it had been in previous years. As I flipped burgers on the grill, Valerie came up beside me. "You know, when you first moved in, Patricia told everyone you were going to be trouble," she said with a laugh. I guess she was right, just not in the way she thought. I chuckled. Sometimes good trouble is exactly what's needed. "The new owners of Patricia's house are coming today," Valerie mentioned. "They seem nice young couple with a baby on the way." "I'll be sure to welcome them properly," I promised. "And maybe give them a copy of the actual CC and Articus, not Patricia's interpreted version." As the sun set over Suncrest Estates that evening, with neighbors chatting and kids playing on the grass, I realized that my battle with Patricia had led to something unexpected: a true community. Sometimes it takes standing up to a bully to bring people together. The following week, I received a call from Mike at Desert Eagle Towing. "You won't believe this," he said, laughing. "Guess who just had their car towed from a private driveway in Fountain Hills?" "No way," I said, already knowing the answer. "Yep, apparently old habits die hard. The homeowner there wasn't as nice as you, though. They're pressing trespassing charges." I couldn't help but laugh. Some people never learn. As for me, I learned something valuable from the whole ordeal. Home isn't just about the property you own, it's about creating a place where you and your neighbors can live together respectfully. Sometimes that means standing your ground, and sometimes it means extending an olive branch. In the year since the Escalade incident, as it came to be known in neighborhood lore, Suncrest Estates has become a different place. Violation notices are rare and always justified. Community events are well attended. Property values have actually increased, proving that you don't need draconian enforcement to maintain a desirable neighborhood. I still have the security cameras, though, just in case. Last month, at our annual HOA meeting, a new resident raised her hand during the open forum. "I moved here from a neighborhood with an extremely strict HOA," she said. "I was worried about moving into another HOA community, but I've been so impressed with how things are run here." "What changed?" "I've heard rumors about some kind of driveway war." The room erupted in laughter, and all eyes turned to me. I shrugged with a smile. "Let's just say we learned that good fences and clearly marked private driveways make good neighbors." As I drove home that night, I noticed a white SUV parked near the community entrance. For a split second, my heart raced, but it wasn't an Escalade, just a similar-looking vehicle belonging to one of the new residents. Old reflexes die hard, I suppose. But as I pulled into my clearly marked, completely unobstructed private driveway, I couldn't help but smile. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when they lead to positive change for everyone. And in the end, that's what made all the difference in Suncrest Estates, not just standing up for my own property rights, but helping to create a community where everyone's rights were respected. Even Patricia's, wherever she ended up, I sometimes wonder if she's joined the board of her new HOA. For their sake, I hope not, or at least I hope she learned something from our encounter. But somehow I doubt it. Some people are just born to be Karens, I suppose. As for me, I'm up for re-election to the board next month, running unopposed.